Well, good morning. As we're sitting here at LTV on this beautiful morning, post somewhat of a wet day yesterday to remind us that Mother Nature governs, and we're continuing with the tradition of public access and the tradition of the Hello Hello show that's been on the air since 1980. Of course, not to fail to mention the contribution by Fraser Dougherty, Francis Ann, and of course the likes of you out there. They make it your business to enhance and fortify the concept of public access knowingly and unknowingly, and we kind of observing all this here and appreciating it. Um, Jason Nauer, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, I said I'm always afraid that I'm going to kind of mess
No,
it
it's
up.
okay. No,
Is
I'm
that,
I'm the same way when it comes to stuff like that. Like once you get established in a pattern of not getting it right,
and people
then
with
yeah.
me, I'm traumatized. How someone called me once, like calling me about something, and he says, "Can I speak to Haim Mizrahi?" And I said, I don't think I know any Mizawawa here. But they try hard, but the harder they try.
Nah. Oh,
That's better. Here we go. So, it's interesting that every time we bump into each other, there's some kind of a spark into
oh
a
yeah.
conversation that is potentially always meaningful and
Always,
profound.
always.
And I don't know where it's coming from, but it's coming from a very positive source,
Yeah.
So I enjoy that. But we were talking about, that I have all these artifacts from the old LTV, and every time I go to my studio, it sparks a memory. I realized that Fraser Dougherty is not here anymore, even though I didn't speak to him that often. But still, I know I can pick up the phone and he answers. Um, Reminiscing had a different feeling because the man is alive, and so many others. So I was kind of yearning into having like a whole stack of photographs to go through them, which is kind of ancient. So I don't know how. I mean, it's right to say that when the more technology progresses and give us more choices, the more we yearn into something that we can have, that we can feel in our hands.
You know what? Yeah. There's always going to be that push towards a few tactile points of something because it carries with it a different kind of memory. Yeah. But yeah, I hear you though.
You don't strike me as an emotional individual in terms of you wouldn't be the person to dwell too much, correct?
Uh,
If you
to
know
to
my
dwell
meaning.
no to dwell on my own personal if it's my own personal failure, yeah, I dwell a lot on my own personal things that I messed up. um I often ruminate.
Like, can you
um
give me an example?
sure. Not completing certain things that I've been working on. Like I've been working on a certain documentary for a long time, and I'm getting very close to understanding to like finally like getting around and like and piecing it together and parsing it together. And
Do you know the reason why?
well, one of the reasons why. So the documentary started off when I was 25. I had just gotten out of doing a job where um, I started off as a videographer in the job, and then from there it actually kind of morphed into doing private security in some respect, shape, or form. And I was working with the members of the a member of the Secret Service. I had a whole entire thing going on. I left because we wound up that we were actually on a rather prominent hit list, and I didn't know, and so that was.
What?
Yeah, no. I had a hit out on me, and I didn't know about it, and
Who
they
would
didn't
want
know.
to? This is real.
Well,
This
no,
is
no,
fiction.
this is real. This is real, and I didn't know, and I was a little bit like taken aback, and it wasn't because I was necessarily doing anything, but a guy that I was filming was kind of saying certain things that were inflammatory towards certain terrorist organizations, and when you're 25, you don't really think about the consequences of those actions, and you don't really think about the fact that a terrorist doesn't have any borders, you know, and if you're next to the guy saying something inflammatory, you are as at you are at more risk than the guy himself. And these are things that were kind of like revealed
That
to me.
makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
But again, you don't understand this when you're 25 and you just are supposed to do this really cool kind of video with this guy who's really outspoken about certain things, like certain genocides that happened. He was really powerful in that sense. He was really trying to do a positive push against certain terrorist organizations, and not knowing. Um, so that was probably my rough point, and I got out of that gig and decided to focus on something that I wanted to
And
do.
by doing so, you were taken off the list or something like that. Or
I mean, yeah, you know what I mean.
I've
Like,
never sat across from anyone who had his name on a hit list. Or
I mean,
something.
well, it was Al Qaeda's hit list. Like it was. I mean, I don't know if it was. So again, it's like he was the target, but I was in the entourage.
So you assume that that's a
So
given that you would
no,
be.
you are you,
Oh,
you you inherently, because of the fact that you're collateral damage. It's even
collateral
no, it's true.
No, I mean,
You're even less than the thing itself. Like it's the idea that what kind of hit me is that you're at that point your life and death become as much of a sideline as the destruction of a car, um, as the destruction of oh, yada yada yada, blew up a coffee shop to go attack this person. Well, who was working at the coffee shop and all this other stuff? The failure of news. This is me just being real with you for a second. One of the horrifying things about the idea of news is that it falsely convinces you that you're informed. And that's a very dangerous thing, to believe that you're informed.
and also that it's
And
human beings behind it that are delivering the news, and they're susceptible
but
to all the faults that a
but
human being can face.
but even beyond
But
that,
they're responsible for something
the,
that will
it
they provide to you that you will carry for life, so to speak.
how many terrible things have you seen on the news in your life? You can't even remember.
Nothing but almost.
I can remember strings. I can remember only a few distinct images, but other than that, it is just streams of consciousness of destruction. And the people in them had lives and they had meaning. They had whatever it is. Agree with them or don't agree with them. We have to agree that they were still a person. They still had a consciousness. They still were there. They still looked at the world. And they have been erased. And because of the fact that there was a news story about it, there's a false sense of completion. There's a false sense of, oh, well, I know about that now. Bye. People like to think that they know about a thing and move on. They like to read the headline. They don't like to read the article. They like to see the photo more than they want to read the headline. So, and they want to hear like a quick snippet on the nightly news more than they want to hear any of those things.
But everybody knows this information. Those that are the observers, those that are delivering the news, supposedly. So the culprits are from all directions. I think that by now it's just on automatic. So we suffer because we succumb, and when we succumb, then we become like hostages in the hands of the process itself.
We
I
we
don't think that those news people, men and women, mean harm.
No, they don't. No,
They,
no, and
they just don't know better, really.
it's not the fact that they mean harm at all. They have they have the best of intentions, and that in and of itself is sometimes a scary thing. Like when you have the very best of intentions, when you're like, I'm doing the right thing, I'm informing the public,
But they
and
don't take. But even if even let's speak about coffee. Even if
yeah,
you have a coffee machine with great coffee, at some point you're gonna have to clean the machine. At some point you're gonna have to be kind to that tool that is
and again,
maintaining that the level of decency in that
it's
sense.
not
So they don't look back and they don't pause. They fear to pause.
they can't
They think that they're
pause
gonna miss so many important things, which is ridiculous. It's all fiction.
by design. You can't pause. By the very design of the thing, there is no pause. And what it kind of indoctrinates you to is a never-ending stream of trauma that you, the viewer, are powerless to change. And what's really weird is, and this is the really scary part, when you start to internalize that and you forget the very fact. Do we have levels? We good?
Yeah, it's just that here. Oh yes, yes, we have it. Of
All
course.
right.
Yeah.
But you forget the fact, like for instance, I'm doing this documentary. It wound up being kind of a private security job, weird kind of way. Like I wasn't official, but it wasn't unofficial at the same time. And it's this weird kind of moment where you've internalized the story to how something should be. Oh, I've internalized, oh, I'm a documentary filmmaker and I'm doing this, and yeah, whatever, we'll take whatever kind of risks are, we'll make this happen or not happen, or oh my god, that's the risk. All of these things that you've internalized from the news about what the right thing to cover is. You've internalized from the media, from movies beforehand, and from other famous documentaries that happen. None of them are truly trying to cover the value, and they can't cover the value of you as a person and your unique point on life. Even if there's reincarnation, it kind of almost doesn't matter because you, this incarnate version of you, would never walk the earth again. It would never be this earth. And if you don't take that for full appreciation, there is absolutely nothing that anyone can give you of value.
But I must say, Earth is not already, so it's not like we have to wait to be reincarnated or exit this world. But don't you think that you're too emotional slash philosophical uh, for your own good in terms of what you want to achieve, technically speaking? Because there are two forces that are kind of hitting each other, and
Mm.
it's like forehead to forehead. It's like first thing that I was taught when I took jiu-jitsu, when we used to spar, my sensei used to say, you keep on doing the same thing, your head clash with the person, and it's like you want to just get it over with and you forget everything that you were taught. You gotta move sideways. But I kept on doing it forever and ever, until I realized it has something to do with something that has nothing to do with martial arts, while I'm actually engaged fully in martial arts.
Mm.
So with you, I see those qualities that don't work, that are great to have, but don't work to benefit you, to make that journey easier for you, and to see yourself, going from one project to another as you wish to and as
Yeah.
fast as you wish to.
I,
Is
I
that is that
that's fair, but it's also here the other part is that we used to value art that took a long time. We used to value it. When we look at the Sistine Chapel, we value it. That took years, man. Michelangelo had a hit out on him. Do you know that?
no?
No, Michelangelo was the guy who had a hit out on him. He was in the middle of painting. There's basically one pope comes in, another family is in war with another family, and I want to say
It's the down payment that
it's
he got.
it's in Florence or whatever, but I forget exactly where this was in Italy. My apologies, but what happens is that he winds up helping build. I want to say there was like a wall for Venice. He winds up building a wall, the wall or some of the armaments in Venice. The defenses in Venice, and it's under the reign of a different of a certain family that was at war with the Medici's. And then when the Medici Pope came into power, he put out a hit on Michelangelo because of this fact. So Michelangelo had to go into hiding for like I want to say it was close to 3 months in this in like the grain room of a chapel. And for 3 months he's just in there alone, and he has a piece of charcoal with him, and he's just making some sketches, and he's just working on his sketches.
Oh my God!
They finally found the chapel. They finally found the storeroom, and they've restored the sketches, and now it's a new exhibit of Michelangelo
Oh my God.
that you can go around and watch.
Oh my God. This is so
This
fascinating.
is amazing, right?
Yeah.
But going from thing to thing, going back to the thing that you're talking about, right? I think that even with you, Haim, if I when, and I hate to say this, but when the day happens when you pass, and you get to look at the retrospective of your art, the body of your work, there will definitely be a story there within it, woven through it. And there's certain things that I think, for me, you know, the tough part about the documentary that I was working on is that I wanted it to be kind of the same kind of a definitive point for me as an artist, because I had yet to be proud or really solid in the work that I was giving the world.
Satisfied, happy with your work,
Uh,
content,
yeah,
feeling a feeling of completion,
feeling of completion, perhaps, or
having some room to proceed with another project,
or,
things of this nature.
or having, or this one is another one too, right? So check this one out. Is also having the knowledge that you are putting something into the world that has an intrinsic meaning. And that is a very, for me, that's a very important thing. That's a very, very important thing.
But do you agree that the system cannot tolerate people like you and I? Because
It never has.
Because there's zero tolerance for the attention that things needed. There's, you don't see people bump into each other and saying more than hi and in a 3 minute conversation. People don't just like stuck for half an hour and developing a conversation like it's a natural thing. I think the zero tolerance comes from the fact that they don't think that they that it that that it warrants their time uh, to stop and to pause and to develop an interaction, and they and but in the same token they cannot keep you as a friend just by waving goodbye until next time we see each other, kind of thing. But we and then the catch 22 here is that we cannot educate the system according to our wishes or according to how we see things. That's why reminiscing, there's zero tolerance for reminiscing nowadays. If you know what I mean,
Sure.
because things become like yesterday's news in matter of seconds.
In a weird way, your job, I believe, your genuine job as an artist is the fact that you will to live and to willingly take on the suffering of being ostracized to some degree. I don't believe it's actually your place to be celebrated. I don't necessarily know if it's necessarily a great thing for an artist. I don't. I think that the art in and of itself should have a very strong meaning. And I think that right now our idea of celebration is really just commoditizing. They like to have something, move on, and do something else. The art market's actually probably the best example of this, because people buy art not because it's good art, but because of the fact
It's an investment.
they call it an investment.
Yeah.
But when they look at the underlying idea of that investment, it's madness. It's madness. You're taking canvas with some paint, some acrylic paint, and just because this person built up a persona, you now have said that this canvas and paint, which may or may not have even been painted by the person. There's a lot of factory artists out there. So a lot of people who have studio artists and then they sign their name at the end because of the fact that they gave their brand to it. Then it has a value. That's a very dangerous idea, because that is just simply an incarnate idea of fashion. It's a commodity. It's not really art. And that's wild.
I have to tell you the story about Chat GPT.
Yeah.
The other day, I said, "What the heck? I did whatever. I was experimenting, and
Sure.
then I said to chat, I said, "Can you write me a poem?"
Oh yeah.
And he didn't say yes or not. He just like shooting a
Yeah, yeah,
poem,
yeah.
which is kind of ridiculous. So, and you know how the answer is instant, the response. So I wrote, "How dare you?" And oddly enough, it responded outside the contents of the question of this statement. And that proved to me that its only awareness is of the fact that it doesn't have an awareness.
Yes.
And then
Yes.
you know what I mean?
It does.
There's no shame in that because it
No.
doesn't understand that. So therefore there's no excuses. And therefore, if you insist in questions, certain
Yeah.
questions, it will go back to that repetition of telling you, this is what I am, this is how I am,
Yeah.
this is what I am all about. If you want to be more specific, I will give, things like that. So I said, great, I'm like Kasparov against the deep blue
Yeah.
kind of thing,
That's awesome.
and you know what? And I never believe that a guy like Kasparov, even though they just said the other day that he had 4 games and he lost 3 out of 4.
Sure.
I don't believe in that. I don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. I think that Kasparov is getting a lot of money to succumb to the program.
No, I mean,
There's
so
just an impossibility because the thing is that, well, anyway, I don't want to get
no,
into.
no, no. It's fair. It's actually it's an interesting point. So here's the interesting thing about an AI, right? In AI, do you ever hear of? Do you know the book Gödel, Escher, and Bach, The Divine Golden Braid?
No, I think I heard of it.
You've
Yeah.
probably heard of it. Gödel had a fantastic thing where he hit one of his great things that he put forward is Gödel's incompleteness theory. And what Gödel shows in his incompleteness theory is that number systems there's a very large gap within the number system itself. Numbers can be shown to be internally having a contradiction. And this is what he does. It's really cool. And it applies directly to AI. Directly to AI. So what happens is that there's the saying, okay, this is not a true statement. Do you remember that? Like sometimes maybe like in school they gave you that thing.
Yes.
This is not a true statement.
Yeah.
Which is a paradox in and of itself. Because if I say it's not a true statement, it's false. But if I say but by showing that this is not a true statement, it proves itself to be true. So it's both true and false at the same time. In fact, it's what you would call a unprovable truth because it's inherently paradoxical, right? So that's right there.
But you can use the word correct instead of truth. That will change the
No,
equation.
but you would use, in this case you would just use true. Like
no, but what I mean,
yeah.
There's a way out of it, kind of.
No,
thing.
no, but linguistically, there's a way out of it. But in the terms of computation, you'd either have a 1 or a 0 at the end of it. It'd either be true or on or off, true or false.
Yeah.
So what happens is that Gödel goes and he starts to build axiomatic truths within number systems. So, for instance, 1 + 1 = 2 is an axiom that you build on for everything else. If 1 + 1 = 2, that means that that 2 + 2, 3 + 3, all of these other points of addition, multiplication, all work, right? So that becomes an axiom that he then assigns a prime number to. So basically, long story short, he gives numbers in and of themselves a way to reference and talk to each other within the system with axioms. And even his prime numbers, how he made the prime numbers was like this complicated process. But he did it. And he shows this to be mathematically true. And at the end of it, he is able to, with all of the axioms in his system, show that the idea that this statement is not true. And it's a point where you and I can
Well, he
understand.
knew it to begin with anyway.
He knew to begin with from a logistics sense,
So why
but
bother?
because of the fact that numbers were a point that everyone said you cannot create a there are no contradictions within
Got it.
numbers.
Got it. Okay.
So that's the proof he puts forward. The number system is incomplete. You can't have everything within computation. You cannot have everything within numbers. You cannot break down the world into numbers. Computation is by its very self limited. Your consciousness, though, can see this, which means that your consciousness is not computational. Your consciousness lies beyond computation. Now, what I would argue, as far as consciousness goes, when I see that axiom that this statement is not true, that the numbers can't understand, right? A number system within and of itself, a computer can't really understand it. They would have to be programmed to just say this is a unprovable truth. You know what I mean? That for a computer, for a computational system, is a leap of faith. That is like us believing that tomorrow will be a good day. The numbers are locked within their own system of just being numbers. We are locked in the system of time. We experience time in the same way the numbers experience their element of computation. So our consciousness is limited at this point in time. But there's the idea of faith, of having faith in something, that if you have faith in this, it'll go from one place to another. Kierkegaard's The Leap of Faith or The Night of Faith. All of these ideas are about you have to have this to be bold, to be able to even operate in life. You have to have some element of faith. Even a person who's completely atheistic, if they get out of bed and they go forward towards a goal that they're not certain about, that's an act of faith.
Yeah, you cannot not be a believer, because if you believe, if you're an atheist, you have to believe in atheism in order not to believe. So
Yeah.
it's but the thing is that because we have, you say, our conscious, it's not it's individually. Even though the human race and all this, you would like to take it as a prototype to something that everyone is joined into that equation. But on the other hand, the AI becomes dangerous is because each one gives, not because we plan something evil or for it to perform something evil necessarily, but because it's confusion. Everyone comes with his own logic, his own desires, his own approach, his own personality, and it reflects. That's why, for example, the computation that leads to a computer playing against a grandmaster in chess,
Yep.
and things of this nature, uh, they are, they can never be supreme to a human being, because it wasn't as a collective designed with collective knowledge, but it was a collective knowledge implemented by one individual.
No, well,
Do you follow what I'm saying?
I
What
see.
the difference is?
No, well, my counter to that is this: is that the chessboard is a contrived, closed system, and each and every play has a mathematical weight to it. So, at that level, because it's a contrived, closed system, it's a game. It's a two-dimensional game, effectively, where everything has a weight and a value to it. So an AI beating you on that makes sense, but here's where it does. Here's where I don't believe it will, because that's its territory. You're venturing into its universe effectively. Our universe is infinity. Our universe is not a number. It's not Plato's world of ideas. It's this world, which is effectively chaos, comparatively to numbers. And I'll give you an example.
But you know why? I'll answer later anyway. But I can tell you why.
Of course, but when we look at anything in this world, A thing, a thing is just a thought. A thing is a unit of thought. In German, it's I think Ding, which is a derivative of Danken, and I believe in Latin, I forget the exact term in Latin, but it's units of thought. That's all a thing is. It's you saying, "Oh, I'm going to put a bubble, a mental bubble around this table, and call it a thing, call it a table." But if you were to look at it as the room or part of the room, that's another way of thinking about it. All of this is about your ability to go and make the assumption, to take the never ending, infinite quanta, and you make a judgment call on it. And that's really what the idea of a thing is. And it's you projecting onto it. You see this a lot when it comes to a religious site, or going back to the first point, an item that you've put a value on because it has either historical or personal or spiritual significance. If you and I were to see just an ancient Roman spear, we're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Maybe it's a part of a museum, whatever, and we move on. But to a person who's a really hardcore believer, and someone says
it's a life-changing occurrence,
or they say that's the spear that pierced Christ.
Yes.
And they're like, whoa.
Yes.
And now it's no longer the same spear that you and I looked at.
In Hebrew, it's called certificate of poverty.
There you go. Certificate of poverty.
Yes. I mean, it's a rough translation.
You mean if you got jabbed, that's the certificate?
No, just being the us that's saying, oh, beautiful, great thing going on, and the guys that says, so that's certificate of poverty. That's
there you go.
But going back to the thing, what was the first thing that God did with Adam after he did three things?
Oh, I mean, after
they ate from the apple tree or whatever.
Okay, so he gets cast out from the garden. He is set to labor in the field, and Eve is set to labor in birth. And then Adam is able to go and name all of the plants and animals and have dominion over the earth.
No. What are the punishment? 3 pounds. You said 2. Yes, he was banished out of the garden, but never mind that after he was banished out of the garden, God secured the garden.
Yeah.
Why would we have to secure the garden? Why?
With a flaming sword.
Yeah, with a double-edged sword, and then the 2 lions and whatever.
Yeah.
But you ask yourself, why would he want to do that? Why would he want to secure it?
Because the kids are out of the house and you can't come back.
Yeah, no, but how is it even a contemplation that he's able to come back? But anyway, but one thing that he did, because Adam was designed to the world, everything as we see it now was in the plan, but God was supposed to be less involved. So Adam was designed to be able to take care of all the businesses relating, and God was more of a complete observer in all this. But what was it based on which capability that Adam had? Adam had the ability to see through time, from beginning to end. All the events was compartmentalized within the system that was designed within him. So one of the immediate thing they said, he deprived him from that knowledge. So that means now he wasn't able to see through time. So he was more in the here and the now.
He's locked into the flow of time.
Yeah, that means I cannot trust you. And you say, how can God not know what the result is? Actually, he gave him that fraction of time to be on his own completely. That means that decision to eat from the forbidden tree was when God made a point to be excluded from that scenario.
Yeah.
Because he had the ability to do that, obviously. So people are not aware that God wasn't observing him and knowing what's going to happen and still telling him don't eat while he's knowing the result. He literally designed it so he he will be occupied, suppose I'm just guessing now, with other things, So let him do that. Let's see. I'm going to revisit him later. But that's exactly what happened. When
Yeah,
he
it's a
revisited
choice.
him, that's why he asked him.
Mm-hmm.
He did not accuse him
No, he asked
first.
them.
He
Yeah.
asked him. Even with Cain and Hevel. Cain and Hevel, the Cain that killed Hevel,
No.
the two sons of Adam.
Oh yeah, Abel.
Abel,
Yeah,
but
we call him Abel.
yeah, they say Cain and Hevel.
Oh, okay.
So he said
Yeah, Cain. We call him Cain and Abel,
he
but
didn't come to them and accuse them. Why did you kill? He said, "Where's your brother?" Why would he ask him? That's a great indication that God at some point was excluding himself from the process because he wanted to see whether that creature will work according to his expectations, so to speak. Even though it sounds very, very, I don't know, very like confusing and
no,
why
it,
would,
it sounds it's what it
but
sounds like is a scientist going back to see his experiment.
yeah, well, good. That's a good point. Yeah.
It sounds a lot more like somebody coming back to say, so what happened in the experiment? This happened here, and move on. This happened and move on.
And you know how we see it also when the big flood took place. There's some stages in the history of mankind which is really not that God was too preoccupied, so he forgot certain things. For example, when the flood took place and Noah was there, and the seas were rough and all
Yeah.
this, at some point the people and the animals, even the animals, start screaming like, "What the heck? Are we going to die?" And it says in the Old Testament that God was like uh, realized he heard the voices of them, so God turned their back on them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many implications to that. Oh my God, it's like not even funny. But it goes to tell you, as far as the development of the human psyche, it's more independent than we even begin to think.
Well, yeah, but it's independent. But
And that means you belong to yourself in the sense of your actions, of your achievements, or otherwise. Everything in that scenario. And we're taught actually that this is not the case. We are part of a herd, which we are, but to what extent, no one is, even if
that
those
that
there, but are not willing to do it.
but that it goes back to your primary responsibility, which is to know that you believe in something and choose to continue to believe it, and that begins and ends just about everything for a person. So when we think about being a part of the herd, doing things maybe you don't believe in or do believe in, again, all of it's belief. Nothing exists inside the human mind on its own. It is all context. It's all context. There is the words themselves. Words require a series of contexts to exist at all. I implies you, implies other, implies something else. You can't have the term of I without other.
Yeah,
It's impossible.
I is we, of course.
The foreground creates the background. The second you put the hand up, now this is not the subject anymore. This is the subject, and this is all the background. We thrive on context. The changing of the context of a thing, or the choosing to say, I know what I believe in, and I am going to choose to continue on the path or start to question the path of those beliefs. That's really the choice, whether or not you wish to question your underlying beliefs or just continue going on with them when you understand them.
But do you realize that the content is something that we're responsible for its creation? It's not like we have to borrow it from some entity. This is something that, and I don't think you see, the system, when I say system, the global system, the educational system, is not aware. It's not compatible with what it is that it needs to kind of point to us, as
No
we.
system of power has ever been compatible with the human experience. There is none. And there never will be, because power is inherently about control and your human experience is unique unto itself. There will never be another incarnation of Haim as I see him. Perhaps your mind and your brain waves will go into the ether at the end
But
of
the
it.
real beauty is that we don't know that that's the case.
Maybe we don't. Maybe we do. Maybe we don't. I believe. I know for a fact that when you die, you
But why is
get
it
absorbed.
why is it important to even contemplate?
Why is it important?
Don't you think the contemplation takes away from the time that's so necessary for us to really live life as we should live life?
No, no. The contemplation,
And the contemplation will be a part of that joy of Radaviv.
the contemplation of, am I doing the right thing for life right now, only happens when you understand the fact that you don't know how much you have left. You can't. There is really no right decision until you first are willing to take on your inherent element of being a human and saying, I don't know. And everyone I love around me, I don't know. And everything I have around me, I don't know.
But why is it, if it's important, why is it important?
It is important.
That's the thing.
It is important.
Other than the fact that we make it to be so.
No, it's not that we make it to be so. Without that initial leap, without that initial bit of homework, without that initial bit of ownership, all of the decisions of your life don't come into focus. It's the idea of context. So let's just say you, without the context.
When you say all, you mean only a few.
What?
When you say all the decisions, but that means you say a few do work, yeah?
No, because imagine Haim without the knowledge that your days will come to an end. Now at that point.
So you mean that death will be a surprise?
No, that in this case, if you believed yourself to be undying, if you didn't have the concept of it, and you moved forward into the world, how do you choose what's important? You really don't. You choose what's pleasurable. Your value would just be nothing but, oh, well, that's pleasurable for me right now. It wouldn't really be important because pleasure would just be about a sensation, satiation. All of your things that you actually have come from the fact that you know that you will die. All of the important acts that you do, whether it's telling your kids that you love them, if you don't have a structure around that to know for a fact of what you're doing, everything else doesn't really matter. Maybe you're saying, I find great. Maybe at that point, when a person says love, and if they haven't really owned the fact that the importance of life, maybe what they're really saying is, oh, I find you to be pleasurable. I find our interactions to be enjoyable.
So what does it mean to find your place in the world? You know, when you grow up, your parents, your teachers, whatever, all the systems are kind of encouraging, go out there and find your place in the world. So what is it that wasn't already accomplished as soon as you were born and start walking, that you already acquired your place in the world? So why isn't it that the system is not compatible with saying, listen, you are already an accomplished entity, and you occupy that, you know, your density is occupying that space, that obviously that every step you take. So where's this need or this ignorance come from when they send you forth to look for your place in the world, and what is its nature, and what does it really mean?
When they say look for your place in the world, what they're really trying to talk about is not necessarily a spiritual place or any place of importance, because again, importance comes from the knowledge.
So it's a place where you feel comfortable, period.
Not necessarily feel comfortable. It's a place where you can demand adequate resources for the services that you are rendering to whatever group or society you're in.
But that's
So if
just one
I'm
peel of it. Yes, I
no,
understand. That's a good point.
like
But
if I if I'm a really good skinner and tanner, this is not the right society for me. My society is in the Amazon because I'm a great skinner and tanner, and they need my services more than anybody else, and I could live there well. That would be an example of finding your place in the world. If you are a poet and you believe in finding meaning in things, this society may not be yours. You might have to take up farming and still be a poet. Retain that inside of yourself because that's your inherent. That is the gift that you have. That's your
you
little
just
bit of
described the
geometry.
human condition without knowing that you're doing it.
Yeah.
That we want to, suppress, and we want to keep to ourselves, and that's where the slogan of hoping for a brighter day to appear. It's like, which
Yes.
is a sad reality, really, if you think about it. And that sad reality, that's like handmade, we that's self-imposed, it's
Mm-hmm.
just kind of, but and again, it's, I think it's more laziness than ignorance. People are lazy. Their nature is laziness. They just like, if they can just like get away with certain things that nobody is looking, nobody knows, and they would, and that's the sad truth.
I would say it's even. I wouldn't say it's not laziness. It's avoidance.
Which comes from laziness and leads to more
No,
laziness. So
laziness comes from avoidance. Avoidance doesn't come from laziness. That this is the part where I you have to. I think this is not chicken and egg. This is sequence. Those who are lazy, and this is when we are lazy in and of ourselves. We all have days when we are lazy. Are always days when we avoid. But not all of those that are avoidant are necessarily lazy. We can also find avoidance in work that has false importance on it.
and I'll add to that AI cannot be lazy because it doesn't really feel tiredness. But when it's in the sleeping mode, it's it's pausing in the darkness, and in the darkness, it doesn't have any viable actions.
No.
So, and it doesn't grow in the darkness. Now, if you put us in a dark room, we're still thinking, we're still fermenting, we're still, writing poems in our mind, we're still having plans for tomorrow, the day that we get out, the day that the light will reappear, and all this. So, AI has a deficiency because when we put it on hold, and that's why, in response to what you said earlier, that's why we have two hands. One hand will tame, and one hand will continue to conduct.
When you close your eyes, you dream. That's the difference.
Yes.
On that note.
On that note, okay, good. Jason, you're the man, man. I love you, man. You're the man. What a moment.
Much
You're the man. You're a hero.
rock on, bro.
We need heroes like you. Now I'll continue on the hero note.
On the journey.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you. Oh my God, that was like really wow. Wow, wow. That was a fantastic interaction where I just, oh boy. Okay, so let me see. Oh boy, yeah. So let me just mention that we are sitting here on the 19th of December, year 2023, here with the Hello Hello Show, and it is Tuesday morning, and we continue with the tradition of public access. And my guest Jason Nauer was here with us. It was very, very informing and pleasurable. So we are very happy to have this human material in the station, at the LTV station. Wonderful interaction. But I just wanted to also mention the group art show that we have here on monthly basis, and it's and now we have on display Josh Dayton, Steve Lotion, and myself. This show is going to be literally throughout the month of January, And then also the opening reception will be Saturday, January 6th, year 2024. So don't miss that. Of course, I'll give you the information again. And the title of this show is Guys, uh, Guise. And then, of course, many more shows, group art exhibitions to come. And of course, you can get the information on the website at um, ltveh.org. You can get all the information. And so, in the spirits of what we were talking with Jason, I always remember the encounter. This is a biblical encounter from the Old Testament where Joseph that was second to the king of Egypt had to bury his father Jacob with all his brothers. They had to go, had to take that journey to the burial area that his grandfather Abraham bought and acquired for the family burial. And when they arrived there, his uncle Esau, which was the brother of Jacob, was standing in the entrance to the burial place, and claimed that it was his property and things like that. And you're talking about huge commotion with potential disastrous results and a war and whatnot. There were like hundreds and thousands of people ready to kill each other and all this. So when Joseph said to his uncle, "Well, we have the papers to prove that Abraham purchased it and it's his," and when so he Esau knew that the papers must be in Egypt, and that's a long way. So he said, "Well, show me the papers." But he forgot one thing. That's speaking of the inhuman, superhuman capabilities that where um, um, that Joseph's son had, and so Esau forgot about that, about his capabilities, and his capabilities were that he will travel this whatever 500 miles in less than a second and a half. And they specify his capabilities to literally leap and jump like speed of light type of thing on top of the wheat plants. And so when he realized that it's too late, then the history will tell you about the war and about the death and about the and it all goes in sync with the human psyche and human profile that takes place today, as we see everywhere in the world throughout the generations. The want to call it desire, the tendency, the attraction towards battlefields, the need to create battlefields and to glorify the what it really means on the surface is second to none, and it's also a no-brainer in the sense of how is it that we approach how is it that we approach this understanding? How do we accept it in our lives? And but when I was younger, I was more of a prototype of a character that will go around and ask why, how come. I used to spend so many days in and days out, asking how come there's so much hatred, how come there's so much aggression, how much there's so much violence, how much there's so much desire and willingness to inflict harm. And I loved the degree and the level of naivete that I carried with me until I realized that that's put aside, and it's all about really, okay, so how are we becoming practical in the face of all that? How are we becoming practical in the face of all that? How are we going to take action in order to make a difference? And that really made me and forced me to change gear and to really elevate myself to a level where I can be a little more practical and less wishful thinking and less naive and less, innocent. And even though I treasure these qualities, but in other contents. So, and then I think that since then, that as the years go by, I expect less, and I am more active and more contributing in the same token, but I expect less, and I really pump that awareness into the immediacy of the hands-on uh, waking hours that we have on planet Earth. Those 17 to 18 hours of being awake and needing to make decisions, turning right, turning left, standing still, and so much more. And so now I can still wonder, I can still contemplate, I can still ask the questions, but not without being as active as I should be while and in the meantime and in the meanwhile. So that's in itself a source of power and that effective approach to doing something by not doing it directly and not engaging your life completely into this task just because you feel holistic, or you can feel that you can close your eyes and send forth that energy within you and make a difference, uh, to the extent that you want, because any kind of attempt or desire or willingness to send forth energy helps, but it's so minute that it's not even funny. So I do that and I know it helps, but I'm also realistic as far as how far and how effective and how far does it stretch in order to really make a difference that will be noticeable, that we can really enjoy and that we can really appreciate and respect. But mutual appreciation, responsibility, and respect will stretch and take you a long ways. Remember that always. And if you do as I do, if you create your own avant-garde-ish reality, especially if you're an artist, if you're a creative individual, and immediately super implement that onto that journey like a fuel, like a boost of energy, like an ingredient of encouragement, you stand to win. You stand to find that kind of level of satisfaction throughout your life. I guarantee you that because I know it firsthand. So I wanted to say that we are nearing completion here with this show. Again, it is Tuesday morning, December 19th, year 2023, here with the Hello Hello Show. And my name is Haim Mizrahi. We're going to be here tomorrow as much as we were here yesterday and as much as we're here this morning, as I said, Tuesday morning, December 19th, year 2023. And we'll see you sooner than later. God bless.